take over. Now you have to take over.
I'm sure people are just like, what just happened?
I word vomited. You can't see all these words that just spewed all over the counter.
Yes. Welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I am author Carissa DeLay, and this is my vomiting co-host,
Jamie Vendera. And we're going to talk about using a thesaurus and word vomit today.
Yes. So this is something that I, as a reader, get annoyed by. So I felt this was a great topic to address when you are trying to figure out if I'm using too many words, am I being redundant, which we talked about before. So yeah, we're going to talk about word vomit.
Yeah, when it's appropriate, when it's not.
Right. Okay, so this is a Gen Z term, word vomit. This is words that come out basically without any thought. You just start throwing words out, it doesn't make sense, and people are like, what are you saying? So have you ever read something like that?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I was joking earlier. Gosh, I wish I could remember this comedy. There was something, and this guy was like, today we're going to talk about, it was in Living Color. And it was, I think it was was it Damon Wayans? Today we're going to talk about being capitulated when I'm enigmatic. And he would throw out like all these words. It was so funny though. And it was like, what? Using every synonym he could think of for basic words to sound smart. And it was like, I'm laughing, but I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had to read that in a book, I would lose myself.
Yeah. And to be honest, when words are, so when that happens, I literally will start skimming because it's annoying. One book that comes off the top of my head, and I mean, I know a lot of people love this book, but I'm going to be completely honest. I did not like 50 Shades of Grey. There was all that hype about 50 Shades of Grey. I'm like, okay, people are saying it's good. Let me go see what it's about. I got the like sample pages on Kindle, and I started reading, and I was like, what? Did she just literally go to the thesaurus and like just pick words and just throw it on the page? Because that's how I felt. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is knowing which words go with what. And so today I wanted to address word vomit and using a thesaurus properly. So a thesaurus, for those of you who do not know, this is basically a book, or now an electronic resource that allows you to come up with words with that are synonyms or even antonyms. Like, this is the word I know is the opposite of what I'm trying to say. You can use your thesaurus to find its opposite. You can use, because typically,
or you can find similar,
similar. But if you're like, I don't want to feel excited, I want to feel the opposite. There's a word I'm thinking, but I'm not.
I got this up here right now. So if I go to, like, just to clarify, so, if you're in a thesaurus, a synonym would be a similar word. Right. Like if I'm excited, I could be eager, enthusiastic, hysterical, nervous, passionate, thrilled, delighted. Mm-hmm. But if I go to the opposite, that is an antonym. So I could be calm, disinterested, indifferent, unenthusiastic, unexcited. So, but choosing them, I always feel like when you're writing a book, you got to be conversational. So I wouldn't be like, let me turn it back on. I'm really jumping for joy. I'm excited. I was agitated and annoyed, while delighted and distraught. I wouldn't throw all these extra words in there or change it. I would stick with I'm excited, unless you're like, gosh, it's not really getting my point across. Mm-hmm. Then there's nothing wrong with word vomit, because you might find a word that would fit into that book.
So clarification, not that you can't create a character that does word vomit. I feel like there may be a character that uses larger words, use that in their conversation. But when you're doing your paragraph descriptions to lead to the next conversation or describe an area, too many words can make it readers stop reading. They'll, like I said, They'll start skimming. They'll be like, I'm not really interested. If it sounds like you're constantly choosing a word or a big, unusual word that's typically not in everyday language, you're doing it wrong. So
it's funny you say that.
Why?
Because I use this word, I forget which book, cantankerous. I actually got it from my uncle talking about another ironworker, a friend of mine. And my uncle Ron Hatzell was like, man, Bob Will is so cantankerous, which means he's cranky, he's grouchy, he's grumpy, he's quarrelsome. but that was just a big word. I've never heard him say that, and I laughed. I'm like, I want to use that for one of my characters, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't word vomit all the time. But I have used cantankerous several times from the one same character.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Like if it's the words, I feel like they're using, you got to be careful, and that's why I like Grammarly is that if you have an entire chapter that you write in Grammarly, it's going to say you've used this word a lot. You know what I mean? If you're using it in such a quick space multiple times, again, not good. So too much repetition is bad, and we talked about this in I think episode 10. Don't be redundant. Don't overly do something to the point where you sound completely, repetitious to where it's like this isn't. I don't like this because it sounds like everything else that you've done. Like in every other chapter, it's all the same. You're just putting new conversations in there. So, also for them, I mean, you can use. We called these when I was growing up. I called them $5 words. And I may have used that previously in reference to large words. You have your cheap words you're going to use all the time, but then you're going to have words that are a little bit more expensive to use because you're not going to be able to afford to use them often. So they're a little bit more expensive. So I call them $5 words because the more you use them, the more expensive it's going to be because it's going to cost you your readers. So as I've talked about before, I am in college at Arizona State University. And this past week, we had a reading assignment, and you go in. It's kind of cool. You go into this website that houses your reading, and each reading assignment has the ability to highlight, and then you can write a comment on the stuff. And one of the second paragraphs, I think it was, where was that? I cannot remember where it was. The person said this in this brief description, and it's like, okay, no, this is not brief. This is 20 pages, and in the 20 pages could have probably been 10 because it was an overuse of words to describe something that literally didn't take as much to say in less time. This is the response.
You know what's as you're looking, what's funny about that is you think, and this is a good tip for writers. Back in the day, if you had to be an author, you had to think, "Oh, I got to write 300 or 400 pages minimum." Mm-hmm. That has changed, and I'm not taking credit for this, but I remember thinking cliffhangers when Daniel Middleton and I were writing together. We said, "Hey, let's write books that are like 100 pages, like really, really tight and quick." Mm-hmm. And that was before Kindle Shorts and the serials and everything came out. But it was like, hey, the attention span is changing. So back in the day, I could see word vomit as like, hey, I got this story that would take me 147 pages to write, but it's a 500-page book now because mm-hmm. I added so much extra. And why? Show, don't tell. Get to the point. It's like watching a movie. It's why people love Netflix. Get in and out with your book.
Mm-hmm. Well, and whenever we do the Grammarly screen share, that's something that I find if you feel like, man, I feel like this is just way too long, you can click on your paragraph and say, where can I shorten this and still get the same point across? And it'll say, okay, here's where you can take words out because these words are like almost repetitious. So that's a new tool that you can utilize that I think is very useful if you feel like you're running on and you're being overly descriptive. Here's an example of a sentence. And maybe this is just me. But it's like, not only do we need to squander opportunities to respond effectively to arguments that rest upon correctably misconceptions of interdisciplinary studies, but also we neglect potentially valuable instructions concerning our weaknesses. It's like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, basically, I like the word squander. That I was like, not only do we squander the opportunities, I was great, but that should have been the meat of the sentence. Like, squander. Now, why? Give me the rest of it without so many like.
I wonder what grammar, like if you put, I mean, we don't have time now, but like if you punched it into Grammarly, and it's like, yes, this is 47 words in one sentence. Hey, let me take it down to 13.
Yeah, and this guy was writing an argument of about interdisciplinary studies. He just has words that are just like on and on, like large words that sound academic on their own, but when you have like 4 or 5 of those in one sentence, it's like, losing my readers here, losing the interest. So this is something I wrote, and I said this just a few minutes ago, is find words you already know. Find words you know how they fit into the sentence. So I took some screenshots and of some of the grammar in when I was writing my paper options. So the word specific. Okay. So I'm saying specific challenges, like the sentence starts, however, specific challenges, and then I go on to write my sentence. Well, if I want to change the word specific so I'm not utilizing that same word constantly, you're going to get synonyms for that word, but it's also going to have its own special definition. So you're going to have like, do you want specific as it's serving an identity or a belonging to an individual or a group? Or do you want to use specific as it's clearly expressed to leave no doubt of a meaning? Or you try to use it to include many small descriptive features. So even in the word, it's like, what type of definition are you using? And then it has, I don't know if you could see this on the pod, but this is kind of how it does it.
Freeze your pod, pause it in YouTube. You can't see it on one of those. I know
Spotify you can, yes.
Okay, you can't see it on Apple Music though.
Yeah.
So go to Spotify.
Yeah. Or YouTube and subscribe and follow us. So like other words you can use for specific: typical, distinct, distinctive, characteristic, or distinguishing. That's the first definition. The second one is clear, detailed, exact, explicit, straightforward. And the last one is detailed, thorough, and exhaustive. So however, I wouldn't say however exhaustive challenges.
Correct.
But because I'm still trying to say however specific challenges. So I could say however distinct challenges would fit. So if you're trying to change a word, make sure it fits. Don't just throw a word on the page. I feel like that's a pet peeve I have with writing. But another example, because the word however, I think I took a picture of that one because that is something that I feel we use a lot. However, never, what kind of words would you put in place of however?
Let me think. Bottom line. I do that a lot. However,
listen, Tina.
Or I actually do that too. Listen, comma. I had a friend make fun of me. She's like, "It's so cute." That's all you just say is listen.
Listen, Linda. Listen. Like that little. Did you ever see that video with the little boy? Like, listen, Linda. Linda, listen.
Yeah. Oh yes. My gosh, my name's not Linda. Well, I tell you, I'm done with all of you. I'm going home and taking a nap. I would use listen for however, bottom line, to recap. If I'm at the end, I use all three of those quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And however, what would you use?
Like nevertheless, nonetheless, yet, regardless, although, however is like some of those words that, we use kind of like interchangeably. So that'd be something I would use.
Cool.
So when I say word foster, what does that mean to you?
Like fostering a child is what I would think immediately.
Okay.
That's it.
So
foster parent.
Well, the sentence I'm using, I'm talking about Micronesia community. So I'm saying Micronesia community, government, non-governmental organizations, and international partners need to establish sustainable development and foster the community's welfare. So when I'm using this, I'm using foster as an ushering in, like a to encourage. So I had used the word encourage prior. So instead of using encourage, I used the word foster to use the word as a promotion word instead of just. Yeah. Yep. So when you just think of that word, you're like, oh, I never even thought about fostering something in. Like you're fostering it in. So I always need to have other words to use besides just that one. And so that one has basically two definitions. The ones I gave you where it's like boosting, facilitating, enabling, encouraging, promoting. But then if you use it in the wrong way, it can also mean the word to breed. So I don't want to breed the community's welfare. That doesn't sound right. We're going to breed in the community welfare.
All I know is you've talked me into signing up for Grammarly.
You're welcome. Yes, because it has amazing, amazing tools. And would you say what was for one? It's cheaper if you buy it for 1 year for what, $139 or something like that?
I mean, it's like $30 a month.
Yeah, you don't need to do that to have Grammarly. There are tools on Grammarly that are essentially included, and there are cheaper versions when you look at it. but I buy the yearly because I utilize it so much.
Well, we
Um,
both write so much. You know, I'm doing
mhm.
articles for my school, and we're writing books, and we're helping other authors. So yes, and I'm so, you know, I left Microsoft Word. Daniel got me into Google Docs. It wasn't as good as Word back then. Then it grew much better. I was saying this to you earlier. I can't believe they haven't upped the game to compete with somebody like Grammarly. And
Yeah, and they might, because
but
I mean, I haven't utilized it as often, because I know when I take something from Grammarly and I plug it in there, um, Word Doc does have options for correcting things, but they don't have. Well, you know what? Actually, I think
suggestions.
they don't. They have a thesaurus. They have a dictionary. However, it's not as easily accessible, because you have to go click the word and then choose the thesaurus. Grammarly, I just don't click the word. It's that simple. So that, I feel like it's an available thing on other sites, but it's not as easily
And it
like.
might seem like a minuscule bonus there, but think about it. If you're like pressed for time, you're wanting to write,
Mhm.
if you have to keep clicking and going and checking the thesaurus compared to double clicking a word and boom, you got the answer,
Mhm.
I'm going to choose that to speed up the process.
Well, I did this yesterday. I had my daughter's old basketball coach. She has an organization that she's trying to get the letterhead set up and get her mission statement. So her mission statement was very first person. I, me, speaking in that terms. I said, when you are speaking as far as a mission statement, I said, you want to make sure your words are
We,
professional. You want to our in yeah our you're
we,
speaking as the
us.
entity. Right. So I said, I'm going to help you. And what I did was I went in and plugged her mission statement in. I changed a lot of the I's to we's. I changed or changed it to an entity's name. But I also used the Grammarly thesaurus to change some of the words that she had utilized that were just very basic to sound a little bit more professional. So, yeah, it's very key with not only writing a book, it's good for writing a resume, writing a personal description, writing your author bio, using words that describe better, but at the same time, words that don't sound like you just threw a bunch of words on the page.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something you're gonna have to learn how to hone your skills on when, like I said, your author bio, your book description, all those things need to have a comprehensive understanding of how to know your words and definitions, so that way when you're reader it translates well.
I think it's great. Like if you want to make the sentence or the paragraph sound a little more intelligent, a little more interesting. But
Yeah.
if you do this and you choose a bunch of words, read that sentence or paragraph aloud and be like, okay, do I sound intelligent or do I sound like I'm trying to sound intelligent? If you
Hmm.
listen to somebody read that back to you and you're like, they're trying to pretend they're really smart, um, probably not go that route. Really make sure it flows, it makes sense to the reader, and it still stays conversational. You can still sound very well versed and let it flow as compared to like you just read me those few lines from that from your school. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Okay, this is word vomit. This is too much.
Well, and so sometimes word vomit isn't just using one word, over like using multiple words. Sometimes word vomit could be overfilling a sentence with descriptions. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're trying to describe something and you're trying to describe it in one sentence. Break that sentence down, make it multiple sentences. If your reader is like, wait, I have done this before where I'm reading and I'm reading along, wait. Did I miss a period? Did this sentence change, or am I still in the same sentence? Have you ever done that where you're reading like, wait a
Many
minute, is
times.
this entire paragraph one sentence?
Even with some of my other, like even for the school, we write articles every week, and no disrespect to Tiago Costa and Ryan Wall, but there's sometimes, or even Claude LaRoche, I will see, and I'm like, wait a minute, you have 55 freaking words in this one sentence. That's a whole paragraph. And I
Mm-hmm.
will go back and look, and I will chunk it out, and I'll be like, okay, I can remove and this that, and I know where to end it and carry on. And then I may have to use a word like but or yet or however, comma, to finish it. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
do. That's a pet peeve of mine. That makes me cantankerous. If I have to
Cantankerous.
read a 4 or 5 line sentence, it's like, okay, you're overtelling.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Get to the
Mm-hmm.
point. Show
Mm-hmm.
it to me. Don't tell it in 55 words.
Yeah. And that's another thing with the word vomit. Sometimes when you're just throwing words on the page, it will not correlate with what you're actually trying to translate. You might just be throwing out words and you not realize that the words that you're using makes your reader think of something completely different.
And they get lost. It may make
Yeah, so that's
sense to you, but no. Stay
yeah.
on point.
Yeah, and that's what you
But
had said, like read it out loud. And if you find yourself stumbling when you're reading, it's almost like poetry, I feel like. I feel like, and this is just me, maybe other people experience this, that when you're writing, I feel like there has to be a flow, like a duh, like almost like musical. It's
it's got to
very
be
like
in the
symphonic.
pocket. Phrasing. I every day if I'm working with the artist, I work tons and tons of originals. And I've done that so much. I said, you cannot be married to every single word. You have
Mhm.
this one line that says, I love you. The next line, but I really don't, really, really, really don't love you, but I love you. And if it's like, there's no cadence to it, there's no
Mhm.
flow. It has to have that musical rhythm. So, and they'll put in extra words. I'm like, you can delete that one, delete that one. Now you have a rhythm. It's almost like a dance, feeling
Mhm.
that dance and that rhythm, whether it's poetry, whether it's a paragraph in your book, whether it's a song.
Okay, something that just came in my mind when you were saying that is words that are used often and are allowed to be used often, but can be overly used. The, that, and, while, meanwhile, meaning. Don't tell me meaning.
Yeah, I try to get rid of those, and even with and this came from Rich, like I am. He said, quit that. I apostrophe am.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
but don't you overuse those either. There are ways to know that you're talking from first person without retelling me I am or me or that type of situation. So that's where your creative side has to kind of come in. And maybe if you're not understanding how to do that, go read some books that write from your same perspective. Kind of get a feel how the author is doing. Like, oh, I get it now. I don't put it this way. Instead, it's like
Well,
rearranging.
that's again that boils back to telling. So if I'm like, oh, this day hasn't went right, I am so frustrated. I am tired of life. I am sick of this world. And you just said, what a day I've had. Frustration is an understatement.
Mhm.
Exclamation point. I would be happy with that. So I'm like, ooh, they've had a bad day and they're pissed. They
Yeah.
don't have to tell me that they're
Mhm.
done with it, that they want to quit. I already know from 2 sentences.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes less words create more of the emotion than more words. Sometimes you get more words. I forgot the emotion you're trying to tell me you have.
You got to realize your readers are smarter than you give them credit, because you're like, even in a song, I've told them, I said, they're going to understand what you mean. You don't have to put, I am so in love with this guy that it hurts every day.
Mhm.
You don't have to spell it out every time. They will get the intention. So, understand it that way. Don't tell every little single part of the story. That is word vomit to me. And again, it boils back to that 500-page word mentality. Now, granted, there's nothing wrong with a big book. I've written 400-page books. You've written 400-page books and more. It's does it make sense? Does it lead the story, or can you thin it out through Grammarly?
Yes, yes. I I hold on. I was trying to find the thing here. Oh, maybe it's over here. Here we go. This is this is more in a nonfiction standpoint when it comes to word vomit. Being very careful with your words, as and a lot of times people say only, always, all, never, everyone. Those word vomits on a page can change the dynamic of your reader understanding what you're saying. So if you're a nonfiction writer or you're writing an article or whatever, try to limit not using absolute words that can kind of like generalize that everybody is involved when we know not everyone is ever on the same page. So this
You,
is go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say when I see someone, and I've read this in this article, the one that was the word vomit of the assignment we had to read, And I made a note. I was like, all, because when you say all, it's not possible when you're doing a research paper. All is not encompassing unless you're talking about an absolute math problem. All does not exist in writing about something in a nonfiction setting, like all, because it's very rare that everything is encompassed. There's always going to be some kind of outlier.
Good to
So
know.
go back.
I
Go
never
ahead.
even thought of it like that. With the squirrel kicking in a minute ago, what I was going to say is, like when we started writing, like even with Order of Five, the first book, our goal was 5,000 words per chapter.
Mhm.
And then by Order Two and Age of the Sigil and all those, I thought, you know what? I don't have to do that. So I would write about 5,000 words, and my goal was to trim it down to 4,000 words for a couple reasons.
Why? So
Because I do word vomit. When I'm writing, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I type so fast, so much is flowing. I get it done. I look, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to the end. I'm around 5K. It could be 5,100. It could be 4,900. Okay, let me go back and edit my typos. Okay, now let me look at my word counts. Okay, let me trim it down at least 10 to 20%, because I'm like, I'll read a paragraph. I'm like, how can I say this in less to get to the point? Because I don't want my readers like bored and carrying on. And I guarantee you, I know that you can take any paragraph and make it tighter and still make it make sense. Not only does it make the book flow better, but it saves me money with paying an editor, because if there's 10 chapters, say, and I just took out 10,000 words, there's 10,000 words I don't have to pay for. There's less printing pages. There's less for interior design. There's less pages I have to do. So be greedy with your money. Think, oh, okay, don't be married to your words. I want to be greedy. I want to thin this out and make sure I'm to the point. I get rid of the word vomit so that I maintain my readers and I save money on the back end if you're an indie author.
yeah. So I want to backpedal a little bit, because
That's all right. I jumped ahead.
No, nothing that you said. Backpedal in the phrase of
Sippy cups. I can't live without. I'm always drinking.
is that like your stuffed animal at night? You take that to bed with you?
No, it's like my Linus blanket. I just cuddle up to it. So I'm sleeping. I'm like I got a bottle.
That is funny. Your comfort. Yeah, that's funny.
I'm a water dog. I can't help it.
I would be peeing too much. I'm sorry.
Have you drank water since we've been in this podcast?
No, but I'm on my second glass of coffee.
Okay.
I'm keeping up with you, my coffee.
That's why I'm so excited today. I'm feeding off your caffeine energy.
Yeah. So, no, I was going to backpedal because some of the episodes you'd be like, well, you've told us to just write, just get it out on the page, just blah, blah, blah. Yes. When you're starting to write, get it onto the page. Don't hold back. Throw those extra words in there. Do everything that you want in the beginning. Then we're talking about going back and saying, okay, this is too much. I need to take it out. So if it's getting you to write it onto the page, you don't have to pause in the moment of putting it onto the page at first, but do go back, double check words or change words. So be like, oh, I've used this word way too much when I was doing this. I need to find a different word for it. So, but getting it out first is definitely a must. Then go back and reassess what words are being overused and the flow of it, and whether or not you need to like shrink it down or maybe find a different word that's being used multiple times and stick to your thesaurus.
Yeah, and if you listen to Carissa, because if you get anal about it and be like, oh, I got to structure this paragraph perfectly, you're inhibited. I can't even talk. You're blocking. I'll use that word from my
You're having
thesaurus.
writer's block.
You're inhibiting, you were blocking, blah, 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 all those words. Let me look it up. Yes, not writer's block. That doesn't exist.
I know. That didn't even fit. It's not even in the context of what we're talking about.
You're stopping your creative flow. Boo! I got it out. I feel like Bobby Boucher. Not only does the quarterback do that, but this kid is why we do not do crack.
Right, Gina?
Word vomit in the creative moment. Please do. But then go back, like Carissa said, and edit. Let's tighten it up.
Yeah, let's go in there and start utilizing your tools, your thesaurus, stuff like that. And if you're in a position like this word, that you're, or whatever you're trying to describe, and you're just going around it and you're just using all these words to describe it. Maybe it's best you go maybe pick up an encyclopedia and find other ways to describe that thing. Go get you. Maybe I need to figure out how to describe this better because I'm just going in circles. So, but that's basically word vomit.
But now I want a synonym for describe.
Synonym for describe. Explain.
You need to elucidate. I probably said that wrong. Epitomize, expound, illuminate. I would use that.
I like illuminate.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So why you did that real quick. Some of the other ones that I had come up with were heritage. So like your legacy, your inheritance, your gift, your estate. But I'm talking about cultural heritage here. So about people who their islands are sinking because of pollution and global warming. And so I'm talking about the loss of cultural heritage. So I'm talking about roots, their origin, their ancestry, their genealogy, their lineage, not necessarily their gift. So I wouldn't use the word gift in that situation. So you can't just be like pulling words out of your sorting hat.
No, you got to know what you're trying to explain. So I didn't even think about it like that. So I love it. So now I got to purchase Grammarly.
Yes, you're welcome. I need to have some kind of a punch card for all the people that go to Grammarly and be like, yeah, Carissa sent me.
Yep.
Grammarly, if you're listening, I'm sending people your way.
You need to have them do a video. Carissa sent me to Grammarly.
I'm here because of Carissa. That and Apple products. Those are my two go-to things. So.
Yes, I'm an Apple freak now.
All right.
And I came multimedia. I had to stick that in. All right.
And what?
I came multimedia.
Oh. Okay.
Yes,
literally whatever speak or sounds you have is like picking up everything. So that's all right. When I edit this, it'll all be gone.
All right.
No, keep it in. I keep my stages in. We shall keep in your distractions.
All right. So that's word vomit in a nutshell.
Yes. And you started it with that. I'm going to clean it up.
So you'll end it without any vomiting.
All right. So if you want to find out more about us and follow us on our socials or find a way to listen to us on other platforms, like in your car, if you're watching us on YouTube and you want to watch it or listen to us as you're driving, you can go to www.alwaysrightpodcast.com. I was like, wait a minute.
@.com.
And you can click on any of those icons. You can follow us. You can listen to us. All the things that you need to do to keep up to date with anything that we're releasing every week. Also, if you have questions or you have ideas that you'd like for us to cover in the podcast, you can go to alwaysrightpodcast@gmail.com and we will reach out to you and maybe have you on if you're someone who's like an author and you love Grammarly. No, I was kidding. And you find it to be amazing. We'll share it. So for me, I would like to say thank you because we do have a lot of people who reach out on social media to me and or even like in person and say, hey, I'm listening and it's helping them as a writer. So I do love hearing those. So feel free to comment, feel free to email us. It's always nice to know that we're reaching just even a single author and helping you with your journey. So without a further ado, I'm author Carissa DeLay, and I'm saying thank you for listening and always write. And this is
book writer Jamie Vendera.
Book writer, vocal coach,
I was trying to think of a synonym for author.
Creative creative word designer.
Exactly.
CW.
The CWD.
Yes. All right. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Peace out.